In May 1618, two Catholic governors were thrown from a castle window in Prague by furious Protestant nobles. They fell 17 meters. They survived. But that act triggered the most devastating war Europe had ever seen, 3 decades of fire, famine, and massacre that would kill up to 8 million people and erase entire cities from the map. The year is 1618. The Holy Roman Empire was a patchwork of over 300 principalities, duchies, and free cities, divided between Catholics and Protestants since Luther's Reformation in 1517. Emperor Matthias of the Habsburg dynasty was trying to reclaim territories for Catholicism. A century of accumulated tension was about to explode into flames. The Peace of Augsburg in 1555 had divided the empire between Catholics and Lutherans under the formula, whoever rules determines the religion of the territory. But Calvinists were excluded from the agreement. Decades of tension culminated when Archduke Ferdinand II, a fervent Catholic, was imposed as King of Bohemia in 1617, a predominantly Protestant region. Revolt was inevitable. After the defenestration of Prague in 1618, the Protestant Bohemians formed a confederation and elected Palatine Prince Frederick V as king. Ferdinand II, now emperor, responded with full force. In November 1620, at the Battle of White Mountain, the imperial army crushed the Bohemians in less than 2 hours. Bohemia was reconquered and Protestantism banned. The conflict expanded rapidly. In 1625, King Christian IV of Denmark intervened to defend Protestants and was defeated by 1629. Then, in 1630, King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden landed in northern Germany with 40,000 professional soldiers, transforming the war. The Swedish army was the most modern in Europe, disciplined, well-armed, and equipped with superior artillery. Gustavus Adolphus II of Sweden, known as the Lion of the North, was a 36-year-old military genius when he entered the war. He reformed the Swedish army by creating more mobile infantry units with light muskets, agile artillery, and aggressive cavalry. He was a king who fought on the front lines. His entry shifted the balance of the war, but at a tremendous cost. The war became a total European conflict. On one side, the Habsburg Holy Roman Empire with Spain and Catholic allies. On the other, Sweden, Protestant German princes, and surprisingly, Catholic France under Cardinal Richelieu, who funded the Protestants to weaken the Habsburgs. Religion had given way to geopolitics. It was a war for power disguised as faith. In May 1631 came the Sack of Magdeburg, the war's worst civilian massacre. Imperial forces under General Tilly stormed the Protestant city, killing approximately 25,000 of the 30,000 inhabitants in a single day. The city was burned to the ground. The massacre shocked Europe and pushed hesitant Protestant princes to formally ally with Sweden. In November 1632, at the Battle of Lutzen, the Swedish army faced General Wallenstein's imperial forces. The Swedes won, but Gustavus Adolphus was killed on the battlefield, struck by multiple shots. The Lion of the North died at age 37. His death was a shock to Protestant Europe, but it did not end the war, which dragged on for another 16 years. The death of Gustavus Adolphus in 1632 destabilized the Protestant coalition, but France assumed the political and financial leadership of the war. The conflict entered a phase of exhaustion. Constant battles with no decisive outcome, destroyed cities, abandoned fields. In 1635, Emperor Ferdinand III attempted peace with the Treaty of Prague, but France refused to withdraw, and the suffering continued. The consequences were catastrophic. The population of the Holy Roman Empire fell from approximately 20 million to 13 million between 1618 and 1648. Some regions lost up to 50% of their inhabitants. The city of Magdeburg, home to 30,000 people before the war, had only 5,000 left by the end. Famine and disease killed more people than the battles themselves. Villages were abandoned for decades. Among the survivors, many wandered as refugees across devastated territories. Orphan children were recruited by armies or died on the roads. Deserters became bandits. General Wallenstein himself, the greatest imperial commander, was assassinated in 1634 on the emperor's orders, suspected of treason. Even the war's heroes were not safe. There was no tribunal at the end of the war, only exhaustive negotiations. Peace talks began in 1644 in the Westphalian cities of Osnabrück and Münster. More than 100 delegations from across Europe participated over 4 years. It was the largest diplomatic congress in European history to that point. The goal, to redesign Europe and create rules that would prevent another conflict of this scale. During the war, pamphlets and engravings circulated across Europe documenting battles and massacres. The press amplified the horror to shock and mobilize populations. The Sack of Magdeburg was documented in dozens of engravings. But many crimes, burned villages and enslaved populations, were buried under the silence of voiceless victims and guiltless victors. The Peace of Westphalia, signed on October 24, 1648, ended the war. It recognized Calvinism as a legitimate religion, confirmed German borders, limited imperial power, and recognized the sovereignty of states. Historians consider Westphalia the birth of the modern international system, where no external power may interfere in another country's internal affairs. The legacy of the 30 Years' War permanently transformed Europe. The concept of national sovereignty established at Westphalia still underpins international law today. Germany, fragmented into hundreds of small states, would take another 223 years to reunify, in 1871. The war also accelerated the decline of the Catholic Church's power over European politics and the rise of the modern secular state. The 30 Years' War echoes in modern conflicts, civil wars with foreign intervention, mass refugee crises, and battles where religion and geopolitics intertwine. The Westphalian principle of sovereignty is invoked and violated to this day. 17th-century conflicts like this one remind us that external powers fueling internal wars for their own interests always result in decades of suffering for innocent populations. The 30 Years' War lasted from 1618 to 1648 and cost up to 8 million lives. It destroyed empires, redrawn borders, and created the foundation of the modern world. It reminds us that conflicts fueled by political ambition can devastate entire civilizations, and that peace carries a price too high to be ignored. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories.